Okay, back to verse 10 of Nahum chapter 3. It says, "Yet was she carried away, she went into captivity. Her young children also were dashed in pieces at the top of all the streets. And they cast lots for her honorable men, and all her great men were bound in chains." So you're going in captivity. It says the children are going to be dashed in pieces, which is the same thing it says about Babylon. Isaiah 13, verse 16, "Their children also shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives ravished." Right? So very bad prophecy, punishment against USA, both Nineveh and Babylon. Nahum 3 verse 13, "Behold, thy people in the midst of thee are women. The gates of thy land shall be set wide open unto thine enemies. The fire shall devour thy bars." Right? This is talking about their army, right? They're going to become as women. They're going to be weak and cowardice, right? And even spiritually, well, Ephraim turns back in the day of battle. They won't fulfill the royal law. We'll get a little bit into that later. But they're becoming weak, right? You think that you're going to fight with the sword, you're going to shoot your guns at all your invaders or any threat that comes upon you or the government, but, I mean, you're not even supposed to do that. You're supposed to turn the other cheek to evil. But, this is your righteous punishment, and you're going to lose. If you pick up the sword, you're going to die by the sword. That's what the Messiah says in the New Testament. He tells you be harmless as doves, but you guys want to fight your way in tribulation to the death. And it says the same thing in Jeremiah 51:30 about their men becoming women. It says, "The mighty men of Babylon have forborne to fight. They have remained in their holds. Their might have failed. They became as women. They have burned her dwelling places. Her bars are broken." Right? So, same thing, Nineveh and Babylon. Right? Jeremiah 51 verses 7 to 9, "Babylon hath been a golden cup in Jehovah's hand that made all the earth drunken," right, with her wine, right, the wine of her fornication, spreading the ways of the heathen to even the strangers. "The nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad with the spirit of error," the Antichrist, spirit of error, the spirit of deep sleep, the spirit of whoredoms, of your father the devil. There's many different names for it, but it's basically learning the ways of the nations, being a lover of this world, this present world, instead of seeking a future heavenly kingdom, which is New Jerusalem, the kingdom of heaven. Right? So you're not born again, you're still born of idols. You still have that spirit of error instead of the spirit of truth, because you're drinking up the ways of mystery Babylon, not coming out of her as God commanded. "Babylon is suddenly fallen and destroyed. Howl for her, take balm for her pain, if so be she may be healed. We would have healed Babylon, but she is not healed. Forsake her, and let us go every one into his own country, for her judgment reacheth unto heaven, and is lifted up even to the skies." Right? Great Babylon came into remembrance before God. And look at this, they're going to flee every man to his own country. Well, because Babylon is Ephraim. It's a multitude of nations within a nation. It's full of nations, because all these different immigrant groups came to it. They're all going to flee back to their original places when they see that Babylon is about to be destroyed and during the destruction. But everyone that is found will be thrust through, and that's what Isaiah chapter 13 says. So really, you want to separate yourself as soon as possible. That might not mean necessarily literally coming out of Babylon, because we do have a duty to warn the people in Babylon before their judgment comes. Yeshua calls us all to be watchmen. But again, at the very least, spiritually, do not be partakers with liars and false people that are, not teaching the true gospel. Revelation 17. Let me make sure I'm still recording here. All right, good. "And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters." Right, again, sits upon many waters, because the churches in Babylon, that is the great whore. The Catholic Church, the great whore, and her many harlots, right, the many Protestant daughters, all these different denominations, because really the Protestants are just learning all these pagan traditions from the Catholics. Right? The Catholic Church is the great whore, and the daughters, well, they're all doing the same customs. They're all doing the same traditions of men, which the Messiah calls vain in Mark chapter 7. It's all useless. It's all vanity. That's not how you serve God. He sees that stuff as filthy rags. It says when our true teachers are going to be put in front of our eyes, we're going to cast that crap away as a menstruous cloth. Isaiah 30. Right, "With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication." Right again. "So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Right? There's the golden cup again. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Right? So Babylon, that's the great city, and the church, that is the whore of Babylon, who has Babylon written on her forehead. Right? Isaiah 13, therefore I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place. This is the 6th seal. This is great tribulation, and the wrath of the Lord of hosts, and in the day of his fierce anger. And it shall be as the chased roe, and as a sheep that no man taketh up. They shall every man turn to his own people. Same thing we read in Jeremiah, and flee every one into his own land. Every one that is found shall be thrust through, and every one that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. Right? If you're going to join yourself to Babylon and fight with the sword, you'll die by the sword. Jeremiah 51 talks about how Babylon is going to be destroyed by the battle axe, which is God's servants, the servant Jacob. It says, every man is brutish by his knowledge, every founder is confounded by the graven image, for his molten image is falsehood, and there is no breath in them. They are vanity, the work of errors, in the time of their visitation they shall perish. Right? So, this is talking about idolatry. The portion of Jacob, however, which is the servant, Israel and Jacob are both the same name given to that patriarch, and that's what God calls his people, both of those names. But Jacob specifically is the servant when that's referred to. And they are not going to be entangled in the ways of idolatry like the rest of the world. And even this is the same thing as what Jeremiah 10 is saying, which is all about the Christmas tree. Right? It says, learn not the way of the heathen, but you guys are doing that. And only the portion of Jacob is not going to be like the rest of the world, trapped in some form of idolatry. Right? And even covetousness is idolatry. Right? And all sin really is covetousness. It's desiring something that God does not want you to do. So really, if you're in sin against God, you are coveting. So only Jacob is not going to be doing idolatry, because only they won't have covetousness in them. They're going to have that refined out of them. Covetousness is idolatry, Ephesians 5 and Colossians 3. But it says the portion of Jacob is not like them, right? He'll be separate from the world, for he is the former of all things, and Israel is the rod of his inheritance. The Lord of hosts is his name. Thou art my battle axe and weapons of war. For with thee will I break in pieces the nations, and with thee will I destroy kingdoms. Right? Speaking to Jacob, the servant, the saints are going to judge the world. It's what 1 Corinthians 6 says. It's in the Psalms. It's in several spots, really. And with thee will I break in pieces the horse and his rider, and with thee will I break in pieces the chariot and his rider. With thee also will I break in pieces man and woman, and with thee will I break in pieces old and young, and with thee will I break in pieces the young man and the maid. I will also break in pieces with thee the shepherd and his flock, and with thee will I break in pieces the husbandman and his yoke of oxen. With thee will I break in pieces captains and rulers. Because Jacob is the battle axe, and they are going to have a rod of iron, like the Messiah has a rod of iron. Right? The Messiah and 144K come back to judge the world. Right? It's also in Jude 1. That's another one I didn't mention yet. But they're going to destroy these people as the potter, as a breaking of a potter's vessel, right? So they have that rod of iron to do this. And I will render unto Babylon and to all the inhabitants of Chaldea all their evil that they have done in Zion in your sight, saith Jehovah, right? Ruling over his people with force and cruelty, being Ezekiel 34 evil shepherds, and Jeremiah 23 pastors that scatter the flocks, teach them false judgments, false commandments, and lay aside God's actual commandments. So Jacob is the battle axe. We see also that Babylon is destroyed not only by Jacob the battle axe here, but also the other title, which is God's sanctified ones. It's Isaiah 13, the burden of Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Amos did see. It says, lift ye up a banner upon the high mountain, exalt the voice unto them, shake the hand, that they may go into the gates of the nobles. I have commanded my sanctified ones, I have also called my mighty ones, for mine anger, even them that rejoice in my highness. So this is God's saints. The noise of a multitude in the mountains, like as of a great people, a tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord of hosts mustereth the host of the battle. They come from a far country, from the end of the heaven, even Jehovah, and the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land. So the weapons of his indignation, right? The battle axe. Jacob, the servant. All right, so now I want to jump into the Dead Sea Scrolls, because hopefully I've shown clearly that, USA is Ephraim, it's Babylon, it is Nineveh, and this is what the Dead Sea Scrolls authors are telling us as well, and they had the Holy Spirit also. This is something we've been saying even before we found this in the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it just goes to show that they had the same Spirit in them that we have in us, which is the Holy Spirit of truth. Right, so commentary on Nahum. Right, this is 4Q169, okay, and I want to skip down to the part where it starts talking about the bloody city. All right, so there's some quotations from the book of Nahum, then there's the Dead Sea Scrolls commentary, and I'll try to distinguish between those as I go through this. And hopefully also my face isn't covering this. I'll try to make sure I don't do that too. So it says, woe to the city of blood. So it's a slightly different translation than the KJV, but that's okay, because we'll get most of it. It is full of lies and rapine. Interpreted, now this is the Dead Sea Scrolls commentary, this is the city of Ephraim, those who seek smooth things during the last days, who walk in lies and falsehood. Right, so this is insane. The bloody city, which we know is talking about Nineveh, because it says the great city, and we know the book of Nahum is about Nineveh, they're saying that this is Ephraim, and nothing in the entirety of the book of Nahum even mentions the word Ephraim, but they come to this conclusion that this is this end days nation, Ephraim, which we know is USA. They didn't know it was USA because, of course, they didn't live in the time that USA existed, but we know now that USA is the fulfillment of this prophecy. Right? And it's not just Ephraim, but those who seek smooth things during the last days. It's Isaiah 30. Right? Also about Ephraim, they're going to heap to themselves teachers having itching ears, turn away their ears from the truth, be turned unto fables. Right? They want to be told smooth things. Get these prophets out of here telling me harsh things, telling me the truth that I have to repent for my evil ways. I want to hear smooth stuff. Prophesied deceits, they say. Right? They walk in lies and falsehood. They're not on the narrow path. Okay, so back to Nahum. The prowler is not wanting, noise of whip and noise of rattling wheel, prancing horse and jolting chariot, charging horsemen, flame and glittering spear, a multitude of the slain, and a heap of carcasses. There is no end to the corpses, they stumble upon their corpses. So interpreted, this concerns the dominion of those who seek smooth things, from the midst of whose assembly the sword of the nations shall never be wanting. Right? They're going to be destroyed. Captivity, looting and burning shall be among them. An exile out of dread for the enemy. A multitude of guilty corpses shall fall in their days. There shall be no end to the sum of their slain. They shall also stumble upon the body of flesh because of their guilty counsel. Right? Deceiving people with their lies, stealing God's actual words from his people by prophesying deceits instead. This is what the shepherds of Ephraim, Mystery Babylon, are going to be doing, and they're going to be feeding God's lost sheep lies instead of true judgment. Right, so back to Nahum. Because of the many harlotries of the well-favored harlot, the mistress of seduction, right, again, slightly different translation, but really mistress of witchcrafts, she who sells nations through her harlotries and families through her seductions, her witchcrafts. Interpreted, this concerns those who lead Ephraim astray, who lead many astray through their false teaching, their lying tongue and deceitful lips, kings, princes, priests, and people, together with the stranger who joins them. Cities and families shall perish through their counsel. Honorable men and rulers shall fall through their tongue's decision. Right, so these people of Babylon are deceiving God's people Ephraim, and you don't want to be Ephraim, because Ephraim spiritually is the people who like the ways of Babylon, like they love to have it so. It says they love to have false prophets teaching them, because it's just smooth stuff that they like to hear. But this isn't what God likes, right? He's going to destroy these people, right? It says they're leading Ephraim astray through their lying tongue, and the stranger who joins unto them, they're also going to fall. So yeah, the many harlotries of the well-favored harlot, right? This is Babylon, and it's also Nineveh, right? And they understand that this is talking about Ephraim, and that's just incredible, because that's exactly what we've been saying as well. right? Behold, I am against you, oracle of the Lord of hosts, and you will lift up your skirts to the face and expose your nakedness to the nations and your shame to the kingdoms. Interpreted, and there's a little bit of missing text because the Dead Sea Scrolls were, a little bit of it was cut out and like destroyed, just decayed. That's the word I'm looking for, decayed because of the length of time. But a lot of text did survive. So interpreted, something cities of the east, for the skirts are something, and the nations shall something among their filthy idols, right? So they have filthy idols. That is very true of Ephraim. Right, so back to Nahum, I will cast filth upon you and treat you with contempt and render you despicable, so that all who look upon you shall flee from you. Interpreted, this concerns those who seek smooth things, whose evil deeds shall be uncovered to all Israel at the end of time. Many shall understand their iniquity and treat them with contempt because of their guilty presumption. When the glory of Judah shall arise, talking about Yeshua, when he comes back a second time, the simple of Ephraim shall flee from their assembly. The simple in mind, right? They're going to understand that they've been lied to. They shall abandon those who lead them astray and shall join Israel, right? So they're not going to be joined to Babylon, but they're going to be joined to God's people. They're going to be grafted into Israel finally. They're not going to remain as Gentiles, learning the ways of Mystery Babylon and all their heathen practices, right? So really, the big point is they're just lying to people. Like they're preaching the imagination of their evil heart instead of the true gospel. And that's what I wanted to say earlier. I was struggling to remember. They're telling people crap like, oh, Jesus is our Sabbath day. Don't worry about the Sabbath. That's old law. That was abolished. Or the dietary laws, right? They say that stuff. They're just making it up with no support from Scripture. And they're doing that as an excuse for why they disobey and go to all these pleasures and covetous practices instead of just turning back to God so that they can be blessed. So they're shooting themselves in the foot. They're being deceived by the devil. The devil is speaking through them. They are the devil's mouthpieces. They shall say, this is Nahum again, Nineveh is laid waste. Who shall grieve over her? Whence shall I seek comforters for you? Interpreted, this concerns those who seek smooth things, whose counsel shall perish, and whose congregation shall be dispersed. They're going to go into captivity. They shall lead the assembly astray no more, and the simple shall support their counsel no more. Right? Because they're not going to be deceived. God is going to put teachers in front of these people who were being deceived but had good hearts. Are you better than Ammon? This is Nahum again, which lay among the rivers. Interpreted, Ammon is Manasseh, and the rivers are the great men of Manasseh, the honorable men of, and then it's the missing text. Right? So Manasseh is also mentioned here, which we remember is Great Britain, which was surrounded by waters. This is Nahum, whose rampart was the sea, and whose walls were waters. Interpreted, these are her valiant men, her almighty warriors. Back to Nahum, Ethiopia and Egypt were her limitless strength. Interpreted, we missed that. Put in the Libyans were your helpers. Interpreted, these are the wicked of Judah, the house of separation, who joined Manasseh. Back to Nahum, yet she was exiled, she went into captivity. Her children were crushed at the top of all the streets. Right? They're dashed to pieces. This is what we read about Babylon. The cup of Babylon is going to come to Manasseh as well. Ephraim and Manasseh are going to join in the same punishment, basically. They cast lots for her honorable men, and all her great men were bound with chains. Interpreted, this concerns Manasseh in the final age, so the last days. This is end days prophecy. It's saying the book of Nahum, whose kingdom shall be brought low by Israel. And then some missing text, so we don't know exactly what that's saying there. His wives, his children, and his little ones shall go into captivity. His mighty men and honorable men shall perish by the sword. Same thing that happens to Ephraim. You shall be drunk, back to Nahum here, and shall be stupefied. Right? And this is not talking about literal drunkenness, but spiritual drunkenness. We're going to have false prophets teaching us with, bad wine instead of, God's spirit. And it's going to be the spirit of deep sleep, Isaiah 29. They're not going to understand the truth. Interpreted, this concerns the wicked of Ephraim, some missing text, whose cup shall come after Manasseh, some missing text. So again, it seems like they're going to have some, at the very least, similar punishments there. Ephraim and Manasseh, they're both from Joseph, and Joseph has some prophecies about him going into the pit, right? The blood being upon the coat of many colors. You shall also seek refuge in the city because of the enemy. Interpreted, this concerns, some missing text, their enemies in the city. All your strongholds shall be like fig trees with newly ripe figs, right? And that's the end of the commentary there. So it's telling you that Ephraim is Babylon, because we know that Nineveh is Babylon. It's talking about the same thing with all the overlapping language, prophecies, similar phrases, right? So, and they're saying that this nation, Nineveh, which we know as Babylon, is Ephraim. And that's incredible because, again, it says nothing about Ephraim in the book of Nahum, but the Dead Sea Scroll authors, who had the Spirit of truth just like we do, said the same thing as we did, and we didn't even know until recently. So that's why I'm sharing this talent here.